I don't have Restream open, which I should have, just to make sure people can hear me. Can you
Hmm.
guys hear me? Is this thing on? Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Monday. I hope you can hear me. If not, I'll find out fairly shortly. This is From A to B, presented to you by Awesemo.com. This is our Sunday football weekend review, as well as a showdown preview for tonight's game between Minnesota and Seattle. Should be a pretty good one. Ben, what's happening, dude?
Not much. Yeah, through another week of football. Good game tonight. I'm interested to get into that. We're going to get into it in a bit, but there is some stuff to talk about from yesterday. You know,
Day decorations primarily? Is that where
yeah,
you're going?
that's a good point. I didn't even watch football, just spent the whole day decorating. No. It
Thank
was
you,
a
Mac
debate.
Motivation, by the way. I'm good.
What?
Appreciate it.
Oh,
Chat
good.
weighed in. They can hear me. Great. Perfect.
Nice. Yeah, no, holiday decorations did go up in the apartment yesterday. I think this was a good time. We held out past Thanksgiving. I didn't do any of it, so I didn't really matter to me. I was watching the TV, but yeah. What about you? Is this a good time to decorate? I think this is a target area.
Yeah. Were you heavily involved in the decorations yourself?
No, I can't say I was. I was monitoring, supervising, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. But no, I was watching these games. It was the afternoon. Obviously, we had more afternoon games, and it was like, oh, this is going like pretty slow. Not much happening.
Nope.
Boom, like just it. We'll get into our teams. We'll talk some cash and whatnot. It really just became a totally different slate after the second Cooper touchdown. That's what really did it.
Yeah. Our good buddy Ponta was in pole position in the Millie for a while, just like, and there was a lot to go. There were a lot of things that could go wrong, but that one was real bad. So feel bad for him. That was tough beat. Obviously very difficult tournament to win, but yeah, when Amari Cooper drops 50 on you, 220 is not not holding it down anymore. So yeah, that was, I don't know, pretty wild slate. It was a fun. I don't know. I actually enjoyed the day of watching football more than I have in a while. Like I thought the games were good, regardless of sort of outcome. I mean, I'm nominally a Patriots fan, uh, and that was a pretty rough beat. But whatever.
Yeah, that was. I mean, obviously having Gronk out there was just a stupid idea. Never should have came to that.
Right, because like the reason you put the big guy out, like Julio Jones does that too. Like a lot of teams do that, where they to defend the Hail Mary, they put out their biggest receiver because they're good at going up and getting balls, or at least batting them down. Right. This was from the
Yeah.
opposite 30-yard line. Like Tannehill's,
Nope.
he cannot throw the ball 85 yards the last time I checked. So
Yeah, that was the key. It was like there was no chance of a Hail Mary. Um, crazy. It was a wild day, and yes, it is, Emac. It is actually freezing here. I don't know what your excuse is, dress for Arctic conditions,
I
but
mean, it's like in the 50s, man. It's not that warm today.
it's nice today here. But it's not in the 50s
I
by a
turned
long.
I have central air in my apartment. I put the heat on a couple days ago for like an hour for the first time ever.
Yeah, I keep it real cold. But did so. Yeah, I mean, there was a couple things. Obviously, the theme of yesterday, it was you had the super cheap running backs who all. I mean, Justin Jackson was bad because Eckler got the work, which was good for me. But the other two kind of middled. They did not find the end zone. They didn't really do much, but they didn't kill you either. They kind of hit that almost cash viable, not good tournament pivots if you got away.
Yeah. I had, like my best tournament lineups all had Samuels. I ended up
Yeah.
with a ton of Steelers stacks and good ones too, like a lot of Juju. We'll get to that. I mean, that's another like wacky hook and ladder play that should have really helped me. I really could have used overtime in that game. Ben getting hurt for a while really hurt. He had 282 passing yards, so just shy of the bonus, which would have been nice. El Cunado says Josh Gordon was supposed to be out there but was injured on the last drive or banged up on the last drive. The point is not really that actually, and yeah, that's a solid point. But like, it's more about like the reason you put out an offensive player there is to defend against the Hail Mary, and there was no way the Dolphins were going to be throwing a Hail
Play your
Mary.
defense.
Yeah, play your defense. Just play prevent, send guys back there, but you want to have actual defensive players out there because what they're going to do is some wacky. And I don't know. It's funny. I don't ever remember like, I mean the Dolphins one was wacky, but like the Steelers one looked drawn up. Like Washington catches like the quick curl, and Juju is like sprinting around him on the other side. And it's just a quick toss, and it worked beautifully. It totally fooled the defense. It kind of makes sense because like I almost could see it working more. I don't know. Like I'm not like a professional NFL coach, but like from an X's and O's perspective, like once someone catches the ball past the line of scrimmage, like the whole defense converges on it. So if you have some guy sort of, you can scheme after the quarterback has released the ball, if you know what I mean. Like and that's what it looked like the Steelers play was, and it totally caught him off guard.
Yeah. No, the hook and ladder. I mean, there's shout out to Kevin Kelly, who, if you know who that is, the Arkansas high school coach who does a lot of innovative stuff. Like he's developed basically a rugby offense where like it's just laterals. He also
is that the guy who never ever punts? Yeah. I read about him, and you've read Scorecasting.
Yeah, he's just a very sharp guy. But there's Boise State obviously is, I'd say, the most famous one. It can work. It's just obviously super dangerous, and that's why you see it at the end of games.
Right.
But
because bad stuff can happen there. Speaking of friends who've lost the millie, remember when that happened to Manny on the like random like the hook and ladder or the lateral play that like cost the
defense
touchdown? Yeah.
Stupid.
Cardinals, I think.
Yeah, Cardinals, definitely Cardinals. So yeah, for me, just recapping mine. Cash was good. Baker wasn't great. They were running the ball, and it wasn't even with Chubb. It was Landry, who thank God I had a lot of. He was running the ball like wildfire. He rushed in. He broke a long run. But I was able to really – you couldn't go wrong in cash in the sense of if you paid up at running back, because even though I really liked Kamara in life, he was clearly not the cash option. The other three all got there. Were very solid. I got lucky in cash. I had Kittle at tight end, not because I thought he was the best play. It just worked out with what I wanted to build around. So that, he didn't really even do anything in the second half, but he didn't need to.
No, he literally did nothing in the second half.
Just
I read something about that. He was 5 yards at halftime. He was 5 yards short of Shannon's all-time tight end record and didn't get it.
Bozos. Should have gave him some work. But yeah, other than that, it was a slate that was, again, I was thinking I was in contention for some serious things, and then it turned out I wasn't because I didn't have enough Amari anyway.
Right.
So Sutton he was bad. He also got hurt. They weren't like really talking about that, but he didn't play for a while there.
And then he came back and dropped 2 touchdown catches in a row from like 5 yards out. Bad.
Not good. But those are really my takeaways. It wasn't anything overly outrageous. Josh Johnson came back from the dead. Didn't even know he was backing up the old Sanchez.
Yeah. Josh Johnson, fun one. I realized like I get him and Josh Freeman mixed up, and I realized why that is. It's because they were both like the bad Bucs QBs for years.
Yep.
And so like when I heard Josh Johnson, I was all excited because I was like, oh, I like this guy. I remember this dude. Like he's got a cannon arm.
Yeah, no, not him.
That's Josh Freeman. Josh Johnson, I think the last I remember him was on Hard Knocks on the Bengals like 5 years ago. It was like Gio Bernard's rookie season. I remember him and like Skelton were battling for the backup job, and
dear God,
it was kind of funny. He's been around though. Like I looked because I had to look him up to remember like this guy, and he's played every year. He hasn't thrown an NFL pass in 7 years, but he's like in a training camp, gets cut. He was on the Niners like 3 or 4 years ago where they kept cutting him and signing him again and cutting him and signing him again in some sort of like wacky thing to get a 54th roster spot. But did you read this thing that he was playing Madden all week to like hear his teammates to figure out his teammates' names? That's a riot.
Yeah, obviously Washington is just completely done. They just eventually the injuries take your toll, and they have no semblance of a line or offense. He actually looked all right. He was running for his life, but it was bad.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Yeah, decent cash week for me too. I got there at the end. It was a weird week because my cash. I mean, it wasn't a great cash. I had like a low 60s something percentile. I did not cruise. It scored 143. So more than enough of my head-to-heads. Got there in most double ups, but didn't crush or anything. Didn't get there, and I won some 3-mans, but I didn't get there in triple ups or anything. Didn't get there in any qualifiers, but. It was weird because like that Cowboys overtime, I had Zeke in cash, so he got me there, but it cost me overall because I had like one crazy tournament lineup that was up to like top 30 in the 153 max, and it hit one of those. I talk a lot about the super booster that I really enjoy, which our boy Chad Stalker was asking about that. Yeah, it's the $27 super booster. It's like 3,500 people or something like that, and top 75 pays $1,000. So if you have a really good lineup, but not like a truly transcendent tournament winning team lineup, like you can get there. And this one tournament lineup did get there, and it was up high. It was like 20th, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, that's all set. And then like the OT, like so it was a Steelers stack for one thing. It was Ben with Juju and Jalen Samuels. So losing OT there was like, god damn it, like because I was pretty close to way up top in some of these tournaments. So I really could have used that overtime. And then the Cowboys overtime where Amari and Zeke just went through the roof, and that kind of getting there in cash actually cost me overall because that lineup just went from giving me like 15, 16x to about 4x across everything, and it was one of my higher stakes ones. So that was a bummer, but fine week.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Yeah, it got to the point, obviously, even in the millie, which the people, that's got to be brutal. End of regulation. People who are really high up there went way down if you didn't have the Cowboys. So it's never over these slates.
It was really. I mean, that even happened at the end of the early games, right? When that dude that was when Ponta was right up there. He had like 3 top 10s, and that one dude passed him who had, and Ponta had hammer, so it wasn't gonna last. But that one dude passed that had Tannehill on his team that was in first after the 1 p.m. games.
It's obviously there's so much happens in those. That's why you really shouldn't even look until way late. It saves you a lot of tilt. But anything else before we get into Showdown? I mean, I didn't take away. Oh, what do you got?
What? I don't know. It's we can talk for more than 15 minutes about an entire Sunday's worth of football, buddy. Flesh it out.
I already saw it all yesterday. No, that's fine. I didn't really honestly, it was an awesome day of like, I enjoyed the games. I didn't see so many things that stuck out where it was like, wow, it just seemed like a pretty solid day across the board in terms of good games.
Yeah, I think we know the teams pretty well at this point, so it's not as much, like early in the first few weeks of the season, you can really start to learn a lot of like, oh, this team, like, losing this one piece here, like, has really messed them up around, or gaining this one, like with the Bears, like the Bears were projected to be like a fine defense, like they were okay last year, and then it was like adding Khalil Mack and pushing everyone one spot down, just like changed the whole thing,
Yeah, what'd you make of that game last night? I didn't watch it all the way through, to be honest.
Okay, I did. I enjoyed it. It was more fun to watch than I thought it was going to be for like kind of a an offensive shit show. It was Jared Goff's like second bad game in a row. I don't know. It was cold and outdoors, and I mean I wasn't paying super close attention. I went out and had some beers and food with a couple friends, but it was okay. I mean the Bears defense is really good, and like the Rams offense is amazing, but Goff is one of those guys that's not like, he's not one of the truly elite quarterbacks. He is like, in whatever system that's not that big of a deal. But, with a lot of adversity, which he was facing last night, it can be tough for him.
No, I mean, obviously it shows the power of being at home. Like if the Bears, they're not going to, if they could get playoff games out, in the elements, be a huge boost. Clearly Goff didn't like being out there. It was one game, it was ugly. For Showdown purposes, obviously, it was one of those really, ugly defense kickers, not a lot of points to be had. Part of the optimals were guys that had like 1x. It wasn't, it was just really low scoring altogether.
Well, there were no touchdowns. The only touchdown was scored by that offensive lineman or whatever.
That was a crazy format. Yeah, I mean, the Bears, Nagy, give him credit. He's innovative. He's smart. He understands the game. So does obviously both of those coaches are.
Well, they're both from the same.
Yeah, they get it. Yeah. But we'll see. The home field in the playoffs is really pertinent, especially for a team like that. I think if you get them where the Rams will be able to move the ball a little more effectively.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, so Goff is like and you're right. Like the winning lineup, there were 3 of them, and I think I counted it up, and it was like 44 or 45 grand. So they left a lot on the table. But Goff and Trubisky, like Goff is clearly at a next level. Like he's a real NFL quarterback, has a great arm. Like, I mean, he's made some of the, I was talking with our friend Jack last night. He's made some of the best throws of the year, like that dime to Woods with in the Vikings game. Just like that was like the best throw. Maybe Mahomes yesterday, like the across the body one, has replaced it as throw of the year. But man, that one was incredible. But he does screw up a fair amount. He's got a bigger arm, I think, than Trubisky. Trubisky's pretty accurate, but like both of those guys are really reliant on their coordinators to get them the right play. Trubisky is not in the like. I think Goff is like a solid average NFL starter at this point. Trubisky is not quite there, but he's showing something. I thought he was just straight awful last year.
No, he looks good, but it's all a product. NFL's a weird like. That defense helps Trubisky more than you would think.
Right.
It's like he does that. He's the thing I give him, and you saw it a little in college. He can move. He looks to run, maybe sometimes a little too quickly, but he's scrappy, and it works with a team like that. Because the killer with him is when he really sometimes he makes some real bad throws. Trubisky throws awful interceptions occasionally, but they're clicking. I mean. You beat the Rams. There's not that many. If you can beat them, you can beat anyone. So
yeah, just guys he doesn't see. There was one pick he threw to, I forget who it was, but it was just like a real simple cover two shell. It reminded me of me in like Madden years ago, like just making this like how like I don't know, because part of it in Madden is it's like very easy, so like you just gunsling it a lot of the time, and it leads you to just like not seeing people sometimes. And so like the cover two, like the guys in the flat. He just threw it right. He just did not see one of those guys. Thought he was hitting a curl, and dude just like hopped in front of it. It was like the easiest pick of the year. Just a stupid decision. But he's like he's an accurate thrower when he makes the right read, if that makes sense. Speaking of looks to run, actually, that's the last thing I guess is that we chopped our two head-to-head quarterback bets, right?
Yeah, Josh Allen, I think vested Lamar. They were both pretty good, and then. Baker and Rodgers, I mean, Rodgers wasn't great, was he?
He scored like 9 more points than Baker. Baker was bad.
Yeah, but Baker wasn't good at all.
Yeah. No, Rodgers had 21. It was good. I played him in cash. I was totally happy with that. Didn't win. Didn't win me anything by itself. But yesterday was actually a pretty standard quarterback week and that hasn't been usually we've had a couple outliers this year. But yesterday was pretty flat, where like most of the quarterbacks were just fine. So Baker like was actually like a bit more of a problem. Where you had Kittle and cash, like that makes up for it. But
Baker wasn't. And to tell you the truth, I said this right after the game plan show when I was in Slack. I didn't want Baker in cash. I just loved the team, and I had 5,900. If I had the extra 100, I would have gone to get Rodgers. I was super exposed to Deshaun Watson. Already, that game was weird. Hilton and Ebron, as we've seen, that production is pretty easy to peg for them. He is just locked in on those two guys.
Yep.
But from the other side, Hopkins caught that late touchdown, but he didn't. It wasn't the game I was certainly looking for. That was frustrating.
No, I had a lot of Deshaun Nuke, Demarius, Deshaun Nuke, DeAndre Carter, who got concussed and left with 1 point. That was trouble. It was funny, like my best like ancillary piece lineup, like I hit all the random shit, I hit the hard parts, but like it was a stack of it was like because I played 100 lineups in the slant yesterday, so I had a lot of different stuff. But so I had like 10 Baker lineups, and one of them was Baker with Antonio Callaway and Duke Johnson, who combined for like negative half a point.
Antonio Callaway, I had some of him too with Baker, but that's what I think we both realize. He is the most obvious guy to do that. Like he gets 0 for 3 straight weeks, and then he gets legitimately 30.
Right.
Like it's just the way he plays.
I had a lot of Nick Chubb yesterday, actually, speaking of the Browns, because you did talk me into it. I liked the Browns, but I played more Chubb, and man, that would have been pure if he caught that. Did you see the play where Landry threw the touchdown to him? That would have been.
Yeah, he gave it a. I mean, that was.
It was good, but.
No, Landry was the Brown to have. Obviously, like he got it done.
Chubb was good too. I mean, he scored like 18 and a half at 6.
Yeah, no, he was solid. But I mean, Landry was he really went nuts because ironically it was all on the ground. Like I said, that was super super odd, but yeah, I mean, it was. I know it was just a weird week. Like I looked back. I had that good showdown Thursday, but like for the main slate, I broke almost two. I think I lost like legitimately 2%.
Hmm.
It was just like nothing. So it was frustrating because my lineups I thought were better, but when Amari Cooper goes that nuclear, it really becomes somewhat binary, especially at the top of big field tournaments.
Yeah. Yeah, I lost about 10% yesterday because the cash got me there. I was up quite a, not quite a bit, but I was up like 25% if there had been no Eagles Cowboys OT. Whatever, but I had good showdowns on Thursday, and then I had a pretty good one last night. I played 180 team, and that was really good. So it made up for just kind of a whatever on the regular stuff. It was hard because you really had to leave a lot of money on the table, and I had a quarterback in
Yeah.
almost every lineup. Like it didn't make a lot of I had quite a bit of the defenses, but I also made sure I was spending up for quarterbacks and Todd Gurley because that's why you were playing the defenses in the first place in theory. But
Yeah, obviously, like everyone, I leave money on teams and showdown all the time. I do. I struggle with leaving like, a lot. Like last night, were lineups up there that you left like 15,000, 9,000. That's a lot.
yeah,
That's literally a kicker to Gurley, and it can
right.
happen. We've seen it, but it's tough to do that and feel even remotely comfortable.
Yeah, I don't think that's a solid long term play.
No, there's a middle ground that you can hit where you leave, the 4,000. Like I get that perfectly, no problem doing that. But it's hard when it's just like, okay, I'm literally taking. I could pick any two guys I want, and I'm literally taking two punts instead. That's
Right.
brutal.
One last thing before that is a good segue into tonight's showdown. But I did want to comment because I think this is actually this is worthwhile. But Joey just mentions I love every wide receiver one against the desolated Eagles secondary. Fair point. I get that, and generally, I think that that does make a lot of sense. Clearly, but the point along that more is I think that is and this is I guess a debate on Dak, right? This is something that the elite quarterbacks with like good offensive lines can take advantage of better. Go back and look at the 75-yard touchdown pass. And this is why, specifically yesterday, I was not as much on Amari Cooper. Part of it was the price, part of it, blah, blah, blah. But that pocket collapses in 2 seconds. Like, the Eagles' defensive line is so fucking badass. Like, they got to Dak immediately, and he just happened to heave and got it out of there in the nick of time. Like, I mean, they had five, it was only 4 guys rushing, 5 offensive linemen. Every single one of them got beat. It was about to be an absolute disaster. He got it out just in time, and yeah, the cornerback had no idea what he was doing. Cooper just, once he caught the ball, the guys like turned around and blah blah blah. But it's just really hard to, like, your offensive line has to win a couple battles before you can take advantage of the crappy secondary, and I think that generally is something that the lesser QB wide receiver combos are not going to take advantage of as well because the Eagles are so good defensively on the defensive line. But Dak and Amari is one of those sort of it was just good enough to work yesterday. So and
Yeah,
the second touchdown was like off of, the third touchdown was like off of a deflect. Again, Dak was under pressure. They sent extra guys that time, but Dak was under pressure. The ball got deflected. Cooper happens to catch it. Like it was nice, but
I think it's pretty obvious if you watch that game that he ran, and this happens. You run, everything broke as good as it could break. He caught every fortunate situation to the max. But that's what that happens.
You got to do that. And just I think the takeaway, like for going forward, I agree. I think people are going to somewhat unnecessarily. I don't know what the Eagles' upcoming schedule is, but don't play Josh Johnson and Mo Harris against the depleted Eagles secondary. Like they're not going to be able to take advantage of that.
That was a weird game too. Like it seems like 2 different games. It was 9-6 late, and it was like this was like a legitimate it was as ugly as it can be, and then it just opened up.
Yeah, it went crazy.
So and no, yeah, Callaway has not had 30. You're right, Chad, but he does have that kind of like last week he had 2 70-yarders could have been both touchdowns, and neither of them were.
Right. I've seen him leave 30 on the table a couple times. Like
fair point.
He's been wide open and been like thrown a reasonable ball to that he's just dropped like over and over again.
Oh boy. All right. Is it time to get into these? This is a good game. I'm excited to watch this. Like,
yeah, a little more from a real football perspective
definitely.
than a showdown, but I think there's some ways to attack it.
No, I mean,
we got
it's true. I was just
sorry.
a quick housekeeping. From a real perspective, I did write an article centered on just breaking down the game kind of from a betting perspective. So you can find that on the site. You can find that in Slack. I dropped it in there because I do think this is just a good one with playoff implications besides the DFS wrinkle of it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, check that out. And I think EMAC will have his Showdown Plays article up later on the site too. So, yeah, check it out. Plenty of cool stuff over at awesemo.com. Actually, for those of you that are not already subscribers, we are doing the 24 days of giveaways right now. After the show ends, we'll tell you again at the end. But if you like, comment something. It'll be probably winning Showdown Captain. You are entered into a drawing to get a free month. There will be a winner every day for a free month of any sport you pick. And then at the end of it all, at the end of this all, we're going to pick one person for a full boat for the whole year. We'll mention that again at the end of the show. But appreciate you checking it out. If you are, watching along and don't mind liking it, that would be great too. Okay. Minnesota on the road in Seattle, 12 men. What's happening, buddy? What do you think?
Yeah, Seattle 3-point favorite at home. These two, I mean, almost by default, Seattle's playing well. I give them that. But by default, these two are like the last standing for the wild card, it seems. Like Carolina has imploded. The Packers have imploded. The Redskins haven't, not that it's their fault, but they're done. So this is a big one. The winner of this, it would be hard to not imagine them in the playoffs this year. Interesting game, in my opinion, just because to me, these teams are somewhat easy to break down. I feel like we have a good idea of what they both want to do. It's just more of who will win out. Like, will Seattle be able to win time of possession, keep it on the ground, use Russ in, play action, things like that? Or will Cousins be able to kind of push them, sling it, not turn the ball over, not go full Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, it's a tough one to break down because I think the most obvious script to me, right, is that Seattle does what they've been able to do all year, really, is like run the ball pretty well. Like their offensive line doesn't suck. Only let Russ throw 22 times. And yeah, keep time of possession and then so you got that narrative going, right? That's how Seattle run. And then the Vikings hopefully are playing from behind and gunslinging with Kirk Cousins. And, he does his Kirk Cousins thing and makes a bunch of terrible passes, but like has incredible weapons and hopefully gets it done from a fantasy perspective. I know that's the trouble with that is that like Minnesota has an incredible run defense. Like that's been their thing this year. Like they've had an oddly anemic pass rush, and it hasn't gotten better with Everson Griffith back. So I'm not really sure what to make of that. But that's where that thing gets blown up, right? If there's a real good chance that Minnesota is just stonewalling the Seattle running game, and then what happens, right?
That's true. I will say though, I've seen a good amount of Seattle games. They are not one to just abandon the run. So like if they come out and go 3 and out with some runs, it's not going to turn into a Russ just start dropping back. Like they will stick with it as long as they can. They have a stable of backs. They'll try. I would assume they'll try to be creative. But I'm with you. What happens if it truly does prove ineffective? Can they keep the game really low scoring? If not, then they're going to have to open it up. And Doug Baldwin's really the big guy we're waiting on. He's a game-time decision. Rhodes on the other side is, as all I've heard, he's better than last week. All systems go. Mm-hmm. So we'll have to wait and see what the weapons look like for Russ.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, if Baldwin's out, like I think that moves like if Baldwin is out, I think that's really good for Lockett because Lockett is also more of a slot receiver in an ideal world. So I think if Baldwin happens to be out, I think you'll see Lockett primarily running out of the slot, and then you'll have David Moore and Jerron Brown on the outside, and then it's just like Lockett becomes the smash play. I hate I've always been a huge Russ Wilson and fantasy guy. I love playing him. Have played him a ton over the years. Have struggled with it this year. The volume's not there, and then the receiver roulette has been pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Like Lockett's not even really playing all that much. You know, he got 2 targets last week. Just one of them, San Francisco left a linebacker on him, so it was a 50 touchdown.
Lockett's been a guy I've played a good amount, and he is running like, I mean, we see this. People get on runs. He is finding the end zone at a ridiculous pace.
Yeah.
Making the most of not a ton of not that it's not a ton of snaps, but it's just not what we're used to seeing. And the targets are really like he's looking at middling targets, 5, 6, and that's not what some of the primary receivers, they're the Devontae Adams, but diet of 15 targets. We haven't seen that. We're not gonna see that, I don't think. There was an interesting point. Sorry, just in chat, a friend of the show said maybe we see J.D. McKissick go in there. He is kind of a gadgety guy. That's a real dark horse. I have no clue, but getting that slot, because Rhodes, correct me if I'm wrong, Rhodes probably not going to travel in there with Lockett.
Nope.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, it's much better for Lockett if he's playing out of the slot, because both of the Minnesota guys are actually kind of tough for Lockett, because Rhodes will beat the shit out of him. Lockett's not the most physical guy. Rhodes is really physical. And then Trey Waynes is actually just as fast as Lockett. Not quite as skilled of a player, but he's super fast. So Lockett's just not going to be able to, burn by him like you might think. So, yeah, I really like Lockett if Baldwin's out. I'm probably going to end up pretty significantly under the field on him if Baldwin is in. And
then if Baldwin is in, do you think you roll the dice with him not really knowing? Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just
it's Showdown, dude.
No, that's fair. I'm with you. Like,
if we don't because Doug Baldwin's going to be 60% owned if he's all systems go. You would think, right, on a normal situation here. But I think that drops by 10 or 20 at least, maybe more. So, yeah, I'm definitely in on some Baldwin.
Yeah, I mean it looks like the majority of your salary is going to be on the other side. Like the Minnesota weapons, I'd say on the whole, you'll see more captains that are Vikings. Diggs always makes for an interesting captain because he is the most expensive guy on the slate. The guy and someone in chat was saying, the key to the running backs. I agree. Dalvin Cook, I don't know how popular he's going to be. It's hard to really get a grasp on that. He's just I don't know exactly what to make. He had a somewhat erratic year. He was hurt. Now he's back. He doesn't get a ton, but then he does weird things. Like last week, boom, a boatload of targets out of seemingly nowhere. It's just very hard to know exactly what they do with him tonight.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting. Well, they also got smoked by the Pats last week, so I think that's probably why he got the 10 targets. Like the Pats had them under pressure. I think that could happen again tonight. I mean, the Minnesota offensive line is horrendous. So if things go right, like this is the primary script I am running, is that like Seattle's able to run the ball, they get out to a lead, Chris Carson season or whoever, maybe some like that, whatever. Chris Carson, I think, would be certainly the favorite to go first. And then you're bringing it back with a bunch of Vikings desperation time. I'm a little nervous about Diggs with the being hurt thing. He's been pretty erratic over his career, So like if I don't know if that's like related to being banged up. I love Steph Diggs. Like I've had until the last couple of weeks of the heater we've been on Showdown. Steph Diggs was largely the guy who was most responsible for any Showdown successes I had earlier in the season. But I don't know. I'm less into it tonight. I think Minnesota's offensive line is going to have a hell of a time in Seattle. Super loud. Just bad players, like false. You'll see false starts, and that's not necessarily bad for Cousins and the gang. Like they're going to have to throw. I hope.
Just quick housekeeping. Trey Waynes didn't clear concussion protocol. He is out. So that's one down.
Good.
Yeah, I thought he was coming, but I guess he didn't get through. If you're a little hesitant to Diggs, like, you're going to start some lineups with obviously the most expensive guy, just like Thielen, captain, work around it?
Yeah, I can get down with that.
I'm kind of into that tonight, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a lower scoring game. In my opinion, I lean to Seattle in this game. I think they win the game, and if they do, they should control the clock, control time of possession. I think we could see, defenses be part of the optimal, but it's not like last night where it was just like, geez, a wasteland. We're going to see some skill position guys get there. Thielen can rack up the catches. He's been quiet after that ridiculous start, but I'm going to go back to him tonight.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance of him. He's caught a lot of garbage stuff. Like he just kind of puts it up in bunches. Like he did. He was bageling at the end of the first half against the Patriots, and then caught like 5 catches in, 2 minutes or something like that. I do think like people are out there saying going to be a lot of Diggs captain lineups. I think that's true. The last couple showdowns the Vikings have been on, there were not a lot of Diggs captain lineups. And I played a lot of Diggs captain lineups, and it was awesome. I think it's going to become. He is a bit of a high variance player. I think it's going to become a little bit too pricey for me as far as ownership goes with the Diggs captain. I'm leaning under on that tonight. I don't know. The banged upness and the popularity, it's terrifying. I love Steph Diggs. I think in an optimal sense, yes. If I'm playing cash, I'm finding a way to get Steph Diggs in there. But I think in tournaments, it's worth a shot to go a little bit under.
I get that. It's just, someone's got to be the captain. I plan to pay up mostly at captain because I don't think you're under that big of salary constraints. Even though there's not a lot of cheap, like mega cheap, the lowest you can go on the slate, unless you're, McKissick, but I think that's in a different tier. That's very aggressive. Like Aldrick Robinson, Treadwell, who seems, you had mentioned before the show to me, he kind of has taken a second fiddle to Robinson in the snap department count. Vanette for the Seahawks. Those guys are worthwhile punts, but they're not uber cheap. They're like in the $2,000-$3,000 range.
Yeah, I don't think there are any $200 plays tonight. I didn't see any. Anybody catch your radar?
Well, if Baldwin sits, Jerron Brown's like 1,400. He's going to be on the field a lot more. Is it a good spot? No, but at the same time, he's a receiver who will be out there. This is Showdown. You can look there, but it's gonna just depend on how much I need to do that. Whereas you have the Seahawks and the Vikings D's sub 4. It's not like I don't remember exactly which showdown it was. I think maybe Jags Titans on Thursday. You had mentioned those defenses were like almost 6K each.
Yeah.
These are a little more in. Those could be your punts. And I think a lot of people will go to a defense tonight.
Yep. The one thing that I think people have been reticent to do, because it goes against everything right? But it works in a showdown setting. On Thursday night, you came in 7th out of 100,000 people. I came in 23rd out of 100,000 people. Both of us ran Jags onslaughts against the Titans defense. Mm-hmm. People still don't really do that, I mean, some do. It's getting more popular, but it's just because there is obviously a negative correlation there, but it's not that big of a deal. And Kirk Cousins is one of the end bosses at throwing awful interceptions and amazing touchdown passes in the same game. So yeah, I do like that.
And in Showdown, that negative correlation is negated severely because it's one game.
Right.
And if I did that, I would prefer, obviously, that Kirk Cousins goes out and throws a pick six, 2 pick sixes immediately.
Right.
That would be amazing.
On a main slate when there's 26 defenses to choose from, you're hoping for a shutout with 3 pick sixes. On a showdown slate, you're hoping the defense scores 16, 18 points, which it can do with 2 pick sixes and allowing 35. I don't know.
No, it's just one game. So, fluky. I wouldn't, if you're making a bunch of teams, obviously you don't stack every onslaught against the defense. That's just one of the narratives. But I have done that a lot too. It creates the uniqueness that we're all trying to do. You can't really predict dupes, but you also at the same time, that if you keep a relatively 6 vanilla plays that almost go to 50K, you're going to be chopping with a lot of people, and it makes a big difference. It's still good. It's not like, I'm going to not play this lineup because it's going to be popular, but at the same time, chopping with 75 people and chopping with 2 people is totally different animals.
Yeah. You got, how sick are you going to be if you chop, if you win $1,500 for winning a showdown slate?
Yeah, no, it's
going to be awful.
Not a great equity, obviously.
Yeah. Our boy D. Kiefer says, all the Seabass. What are you thinking about kickers tonight? I wanted to bring that up. This is a tough one. It's I don't know. Sometimes I just write them off. Sometimes it's like, oh, this is a kicker game. This is in the middle for me. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly don't think that Showdown is my strong suit, but even within it, I can tell you for certain the thing I struggle with most is what to do with the kickers each and every week.
Yep.
Uh, I think this is going to be a lower scoring game. I think we could see red zone offense stall for both sides. So I like the kickers. I plan to be over. I just have trouble using them because it's like, oh, I'll use kickers, but where? What lineups? What correlation? That's
Right.
where I
What do I
really
put him with?
struggle.
It's hard.
So
Because like you want an offense to be doing well for your kicker to go there, but the offense also has to sputter for the field goal opportunities. So like, and that really hurts like the QB, for instance. And like Antoine's out there talking. Yes, two QBs, 100%. I play if I can play two QBs, I do in just about every showdown lineup. Like they're the best plays. Like you should play the QBs if you can afford them. And QBs and kickers heavily negatively correlate. So yeah, I'm playing as much. It's weird. I open these up and sometimes you get the like massive 90% owned chalk QB, but usually they're all like I don't know 40-50% owned, or like there will be one that's 60-70% owned, and one like Cody Kessler the other night was 30% owned. He was like $9,000. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like you should play those guys. They're gonna score. They have the highest floors for sure, and like there's
yeah,
a lot.
yeah, you play them. I get it in tournaments. I'm with. I'm not saying don't play them. You can do different things with
Yeah,
different games.
I was getting to that. There's other narratives, right? Like, yeah, you're like my Derrick Henry captain team from last week that that was a great call of yours. If you're playing Derrick Henry captain, you're probably not playing Mariota with that because you're not expecting him to throw him a bunch of touchdowns. But in general, there's no reason not to play a quarterback. Like, don't play a kicker instead of a quarterback so that you leave $7,000 on the table so that you're unique. That's more than being contrarian.
No, absolutely. And we have a good question from chat. Joey, he's just kind of following up on what we were talking about. So and this is just one strategy, but if you do an onslaught against the defense, do you use the QB with it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. He's the key actually,
Right.
because if he throws a pick six, of course it's helping your defense, but he's the guy who's going to have to play catch up.
Right. You're hoping that he throws 6 touchdowns and 2 of them are to the defense.
Of course. We saw this on display with Mahomes against the Rams.
Yep.
And take the score out of that, it would have worked. But that was an outlier in the sense that getting 20 from your defense actually didn't help because there were other plays. But normally, I did it, my best showdown was the Jags-Titans. I did it with Cody Kessler. And that was so low scoring, it actually worked with the Titans defense, got like 11. But it was good enough with sacks. He fumbled once. It's just a unique build. And again, you're going to be way away from the majority of the herd, which is
Remember,
great.
kids, the Chiefs scored 51 actual NFL points, and the Rams defense put up 22 on them. Like,
Yeah, there you go.
it can happen. Like, you need wacky stuff, but it's not crazy to do. Because we've said this before, blah blah blah. The worst possible score you can get, if they give up 35 or more points, that's -4. That's it. Doesn't matter after that. And like between 14 and 34 points is a difference of 2 points. 80% of the time you're going to give up between 14 and 34 points. So it's only really helpful if you just like shut a team down for the positive points. The points, I mean, my point is I just don't even look at points allowed basically when I'm targeting defense. I just look at pressure. Are they going to, and it's like, is the line going to be able to get to this guy? And is the quarterback prone to making mistakes? That's all you're really looking for.
I'm with you. I totally agree. In Showdown, I will say that if I think it's going to be a really low scoring slate overall, defense becomes a little more pertinent because you can get by with just allowing like 10 real points, 3 sacks, and a pick. Getting 11 in a game that only has 20 real points total is probably going to be part of the optimal. But yeah, all in all, it's more important if you're looking for the ceilings, not about how many points you're allowed. That's irrelevant to the ceiling.
Right. And I am talking more from a tournament perspective too, obviously. Like in main slates, yeah, if a team is projected to score 11 points and the defense is only 2,700, like by all means, like you should, it's nice to have that floor, but we're talking about high upside GPP.
But it's all high variance. Like, not to take a sample size of one, but But like, look at the Chargers yesterday. Like at home, I use them, and they were not. But it's just like defense. It's a crazy high variance, fluky thing already. You want to roll the dice there because more often than not, it's not as easy as like, oh, I'm going to pick this team because they're going to murder this team and they're going to shut out the Bengals. Well,
Right.
no, like it's tough in the NFL.
I mean, the Giants are one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and they were the best one. And the Lions are not a good defense either, and those were the best ones yesterday. It was just, it's the quarterback against. So, Cousins, very good fantasy quarterback, but he can struggle real life wise, and so he's a guy that can certainly throw some pick sixes. And then Russ, Minnesota's pass rush hasn't been great, but like they've got a lot of good players. They've got some ball hawks in the secondary. I don't know. Russ can screw up. Russ takes a lot of sacks. Like, I don't.
Oh yeah,
Minnesota defense isn't insane either.
I like the personally. I mean, both quarterbacks. I see an appeal for using them. I will have Russ teams with Minnesota's defense, and I will have Cousins teams with Seattle's defense because both defenses are good enough, and both quarterbacks in their own way do enough to give that defense potential boosts. What it is interesting though, some we just saw in chat. If Seattle doesn't run on them, I really don't know what to expect because I'd be pretty stunned if we see Russ just slinging it.
Yeah,
Oh,
he hasn't yet this year, so it's kind of hard to figure that out. Yeah, like Aaron's saying, I don't think Seattle will be able to run on Minnesota. It's totally possible. Like Minnesota's a very good run defense, so it could happen. But I think I'm just willing to take the chance on them being able to do it. It's all they've done all year. The offensive line has been better at it. They're at home. And they'll keep trying. Like you said earlier, I think it's a very good point. They're going to keep trying regardless.
that's what I was going to take it. Like, I honestly think Seattle will lose the game trying to run the ball at some point. Like, unless it's so glaringly obvious that they're down immediately, and I don't see that happening. I do think that they will, deep into that game, even if they are trailing, will be continuously trying to control that clock, establish the run, set up play action. And if Baldwin sits, that's even more because, like, I just don't see them attacking with Brown, Lockett, and whoever else is out there repeatedly against this team.
Yep. Not DJ Moore, David Moore.
Yeah, those guys, they should combine that into they would be a pretty damn good player if you got both of them.
Yeah, it's actually fun. I have one of my buddies, like, who's a sick drummer. His name is DJ Moore, but the D is David. So it's been weirding me out to have both of those guys around in the world because it's like, oh, that's my friend. He's not that athletic though. Very skinny dude.
Neither partner, and that's true. Showdowns always come down to which ancillary no-name catches TD. That's true.
It's not. It hasn't been lately though.
No, that you're right. Absolutely. What I was gonna say is we haven't seen for a couple different reasons. If there's a lot of scoring, a guy who catches one fluke touchdown and gets you 9 doesn't really matter. And B, we really haven't seen, besides Travis Benjamin.
Right, Gerald Everett. Remember that? That was also in that Rams Chiefs game. He was $2,000 and scored like 22 touchdowns and 20-something points. He also was not in the optimal lineups. It was just like such a barn burner.
Yeah, because Reynolds was just like running amok. It was.
And Chris Conley too, right? Didn't he? I think he scored more. He was cheaper than Rams defense or Gerald Everett. He was like $1,500, and he scored like 25 points. So he barely.
Yeah, I think he scored twice in real life. What do you think? I know I kind of alluded to. Do you have a feel on the game itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what we've been saying. I think that Seattle is going to try to run the ball. I think they'll probably eventually be able to do it, and that Minnesota's going to play from behind. Cousins is going to throw a lot. Russ is not going to throw a lot. And hopefully, like, they get out early, too, where I think there's room for Seattle to... we've seen some crazy Russ games lately where he just throws for, like, 12 times for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's... I mean, so you think Seattle wins the game if you had to pick?
I think so, yeah. I mean, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I would lay the 3. At home, I think what you brought up is a fair point. Like, offensive line, it's not easy to play, on the road at night. If they can get pressure on Cousins, it could be bad. The running game we'll see. We'll see how effective Seattle is. But again, they'll be able to do enough, in my opinion, to keep it honest. Where Russ, you've said it, he's gotten there in like ridiculous, yeah, you said it, 12 dropbacks. He's got 3 touchdowns. And it's all just very weird, methodical type offense.
Yeah, definitely. Optimal lineup for cash, but we can't give out a whole lineup. But I would say generally your showdown strategy for cash is play both quarterbacks. Try to get, if there's a stud running back, try to get that in. And then you can punt with kickers. Kickers are pretty safe. That's why I feel like we get a rep for kind of hating on kickers in showdown. It's not that. It's just like they don't have the ceiling really that other, it's funny. We've had a couple where it's like, oh god, this kicker just scored 18 points, but
traditionally
it doesn't happen all that often. But they're pretty safe for you're going to get 5 to 8 points for 3,500 usually. So that's a pretty nice thing to put into a cash lineup. I don't really play a lot of showdown. I mean, I've never played showdown cash, but I've looked at the cash the cash games.
That's just how you do it. I mean, it's a fact that when you're playing showdown cash, you're looking for floor, of course, and the kickers clearly, especially of punts, have the highest floor because they're going to get involved regardless.
Right. I'm damn sure playing a lot more Aldrick Robinson than I am, Dan Bailey tonight. But if it was a cash game, I get the argument for Dan Bailey. Aldrick Robinson's very live to bagel.
Dan Bailey is beating Aldrick Robinson more times than not tonight. Yeah. The difference is barring a miracle, Dan Bailey can't get 20. Aldrick Robinson, in a ridiculous scenario, could. Just because he's a different type. I don't need to explain that. He's a receiver, so.
Yeah. No, that was very well put. I would say, Dan Bailey is going to outscore Aldrick Robinson 6, 7 out of 10 times. But 1 out of those 3, 4 times that Aldrick Robinson does outscore Dan Bailey, he's going to score 25.
5x.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's where it gets into the balance of, pivots and different type of games where in cash, you don't want to say, I'm going to try to YOLO a 10% Aldrick Robinson monster performance. Why would you want to do that? You're looking to say, I want to keep it steady and give me the 70% Dan Bailey 8 points.
Right.
And I'll live with that because I'm not trying to beat 100,000 people.
And Dan Bailey sucks. Remember?
Well, yeah, I don't know what happened to him. I thought he was amazing.
No, but clearly he wasn't that good anymore. Or remember how smug Twitter was in the first couple weeks of the season? As everyone was having bad weeks, it's just I can't believe Dan Bailey doesn't have a job. Because he was a good kicker for a long time, but obviously something was wrong with him because 32 NFL teams passed on him and decided to play Zane Gonzalez instead of him. So.
No, he has been bad. And Tube Talks actually just brought up, I have been thinking about this, and it's not enough yet for me to really change things, but it is true. A lot of teams, and you got to know the team, are rolling the dice more where kicking situations, it's not as plug and play it's 4th and 1, bring out the field goal team. A lot of teams are going for it more, and that you need opportunities for your kickers, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, who had a terrible kicking game yesterday, and then this wasn't his fault, but ultimately caught whatever. Gostkowski was real bad yesterday, and then the stupid Pats. I see you, Pete Martinez. I
see you. I respect that.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
I mean, listen, I grew up a Patriots fan. It's the team I like. I get it. I also grew up a Red Sox fan, and we would just piss ourselves laughing every time the Yankees would lose the World Series. So. It's fun, I understand the hatred. It makes a lot of sense. But that was insane. They're up, there's 20 seconds left. It's 4th and goal from the 2. And Miami does not have any timeouts. They're up by 2 points, and they decide to kick a field goal. Why would you do that?
Well, I mean, in hindsight, it shouldn't have mattered. That's the whole point. You could just take a knee there and it would be fine, or kick a field goal and it would be fine. I get what you're saying. It's just defend a 90-yard touchdown regardless.
Well, that's a lot easier than defending a 65-yard touchdown.
But it would have been a field goal, don't forget.
There's less field to work. Say what?
Yeah, but if you're only up 2.
This is actually my point, what I was getting to. Are you saying, because when there's only 20 seconds left, if they just run the ball there and try to get in, then and if they get stuffed, the Dolphins are going to have 15 seconds. They're starting at their own 2-yard line.
Yeah.
They don't have a timeout. So, yeah, then you're only up by 2 and a field goal wins it, but they can't get to a field goal.
I mean, it would take a
Pass interference.
a penalty of some sort.
That's the
moral
only
is not
out.
with you. Like I would clearly not kick a field. There's a better chance, in my opinion, that the field goal gets blocked. Like that's the biggest thing I would worry about. But
Right.
either way,
I'm saying, like, with only 15 seconds left and no timeouts, there's not time for 2 plays. Like,
unless one goes out of bounds.
but no one's gonna, like, NFL teams know, like, if
I know
Tannehill gets the ball at his own 2-yard line, the Pats are gonna have 4 guys like standing at either sideline deep. So, like, no one's getting out of bounds. But
what can you do? Shame. It's a damn shame.
yeah, it's just, the poor Pats really having a
there was
crappy
I'm
underdogs.
thinking of something and now I forgot because of this stupid Patriots.
It's also kind of fun, and you must remember this from the Yankees growing up, like how fun it is. You can just put people on tilt so easily by talking about your team.
At all.
No, but like you saw it in your community.
Yeah, in my community. Yes, no, it is what it is with them. The league's catching up. Thank God. It only took them a decade to realize some of these like smart things that they do. That wasn't smart yesterday, though.
No, whatever. The guy's been amazing, but yeah, I'll nail my strategies. That's not my strategy. That's just like That's just like it's kind of an obvious thing. That's sort of why I was flabbergasted.
Oh, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, teams going for it. And that's true. More teams more often have been leaving the kicker on the sidelines.
Yes. Oh yeah. So back to screw kickers and Showdown. Gotcha.
Yeah, get him out of here. Anything else? I mean, it's a good, like I said, this is a good game from a society perspective. I just don't know how Showdown will work.
How many points do you think will be allocated tonight?
It's gonna be some points. I like the under in the game for what it's worth. Because again, I'm banking on the narrative that Seattle can run the ball. All this stuff is contingent on them winning time of possession.
That's fair, and I'm with you. Have you ever liked the over in a game?
I mean, yeah, there's some games I prefer games that are unders, but I
exactly.
not that type of game. I know what you're saying. Yeah, I'm more of a bet the under kind of guy, but I don't bet a lot of over unders, to be honest.
No, I don't either, and it is weird because like betting the unders is historic and it makes sense. They are juiced a little bit over because the public it's more fun to bet an over because it's fun to cheer for scoring in a game. So, like, they are juiced a little bit they are usually, I don't know how much, but maybe a point too high or something like that. So, you can do better betting unders, but
just wait. You got to wait a whole year.
It's not enough to beat the VIG.
But. Army, Navy, just every year bet the under. It's flown under like 12 years in a row now. It's just like everyone. I think this is like the last. They're gonna have to set it at like 30 next year because every year it's just when the academies play each other. Yeah. It's 2 triple option schools. It's like 7-minute, 8-minute drives. But yeah.
Yeah. Joey, another good point. Like in today's NFL, it seems so hard to go under. It does feel that way, and I remember looking 5-6 weeks into the season, and it was like 53% of games hit the over. It wasn't like because it felt like every game was blowing out, but it really wasn't. And like, yes, more games were going over than were going under, but if you were just blindly betting overs at 53%, you're losing money. So
it also just it adjusts like everything. Like that in the NBA, overs were hitting like at an absurd clip early, and then it normalizes. Right. Obviously, they adjust the totals for this, but also keep in mind we're entering December. Like these games, not tonight particularly, but it's still outdoors. Like the game last night, if that game is in a dome. I'm not saying it's just a totally different game, but it's certainly not, in my opinion, 15-6. That it's that time of year. It gets harder to score.
Yeah. That's actually a worthwhile thing to note for the NBA in general. That happens every year. Teams play so fast out of the gate, and then they slow back. Like, they're all back down to their normal rates now. I mean, I think New Orleans is still the fastest, but they were like a 104 pace last year, and they're, back down to 105, 106 now. Like, teams don't keep up I don't know. Some of them, like Atlanta and the Lakers were playing at like 112 or something early for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's
then
absurd.
people slow back down. It is hilarious how, I mean, this point's been brought up a lot, but like the slowest team in the NBA now is like as fast as the 7 seconds or less Suns was. It's wild how much the game's sped up. Yep.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah, it is. Cool. I mean, that about do it for you?
Yeah, last thing. I don't know if you want to do it. I can do it. We mentioned it earlier in the video, but this is our giveaway season. So at the end of this show, if you can give us a like now. We appreciate that. But at the end, if you comment not in the chat, but in the actual video, who do you think is going to be the highest scoring captain? You can say whoever you want. You're going to be eligible for the giveaway. It's 1 month of any sport that you want. So you can try out a whole month of something. We hope you stick around. And then you're also going to be entered into the entire giveaway where we give a full year membership, the entire shebango. So why not? It's a free roll. Do it. And maybe you will win because we're giving one away every single day.
It's true.
It's pretty good. Actually.
And you can get entered in by any of the, you can even watch like Adam's crappy show, like,
tell him. Yeah, it's every show. So like, if you're an MME kind of guy, watch all the shows and comment on all of them. And you gotta, you can
more outs.
More outs. It's all about more outs.
Absolutely. So you can comment at the end of the show, which is right now. Thanks for listening.